Hello, my name is Blair. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to the Sensory Awareness series, and welcome back to the Sensory Timeline mini-series. I hope you feel welcome. Today is day 5, which means we are continuing along the sensory timeline, picking back up in adolescence. So I am considering adolescence to be between like 11 to 17, and the main developmental goal here is to seek independence and start to develop one's identity. Probably the biggest challenge that comes with adolescence is puberty. From hormonal craziness to new social connections to bodily evolution, everything is changing, and it's changing really fast. The search for one's own identity and belief system is crucial, and again, trying to pick up the sensory integration slack gets in the way. Just because of the sheer amount of stuff going on in here, sensory challenges are likely to be worse than they ever were, or probably ever will be after that. It's awful. The external demands being placed on a person are also starting to change during this time period. Academic intensity is continuing to increase. They might have more responsibilities at home. If they're old enough, they might have a job. Trying to navigate the increasing complexity of life while still frantically trying to pick up all this sensory integration slack might be too much for the person to handle, and they might enter a period of burnout, or even develop comorbid mental illnesses like anxiety, panic disorder, or depression. Social difficulties can be hard to handle too. The desire to fit in is almost universal to adolescents, so they will likely be trying harder than ever to mask, with varying levels of success. They're usually intellectually average or even above average, but might lag behind in school for mysterious reasons. These are the kids who get a comment on their report card like, "Bright student, would do a lot better if they applied themselves." What the teacher's failing to realize is that you are trying to ignore the sound that the fluorescent lights make during the whole class period, and you don't have enough room left in your brain to hear what she's actually saying. For me, 6th grade was my first major period of burnout. Up until that point, I had been able to sort of compensate for my social and sensory difficulties by making good grades in school. But when the demands of school started to ramp up, I didn't have anything to sort of balance out all the bad. My SPD affected me more than ever. I couldn't focus on anything in school, and I was so touch sensitive that when I would walk from class to class, if someone brushed against my shoulder in the hallway, I would literally start to feel nauseated. I called my mom almost every day, begging her to take me home because I felt so awful. In 8th grade, I started to have panic attacks regularly, like at least a few times a week. Yet no one identified the actual root of my problem, which was my sensory insecurity and my lack of sensory integration skills. If there are symptoms of some kind of disorder, but no other explanation seems to fit, or if they've been treated for a mental disorder but it doesn't seem to be helping, consider that the true root of the problem might be a lack of basic sensory integration skills. Without sensory integration, you cannot build on anything because you don't have a foundation to understand what the world is trying to tell you. Adolescents are already prone to feel like nobody in their lives understand them. It's not a phase, Mom. This is really who I am. But for SPDers, this might actually be true. It's likely that they are the only SPDer they know. Because adolescents usually seek validation from peers or from people slightly older than them, finding online or in-person support groups where they can share experiences can be really, really helpful. Seeing themselves reflected in someone else, or at least hear from somebody who's going through it too, can be absolutely monumental. I've linked a couple of SPD-related social media spaces down in the description. If you can help them to feel at least a little bit understood, then that's one step in the right direction. They might also benefit from talking to a sensory-aware therapist. If they're receptive to it, of course. Therapy doesn't work unless you want it to. Next up is young adulthood, ages 18 to 25. So developmentally, the brain is kind of finishing up puberty, Did you know puberty doesn't end until you're 25? Because I didn't know that until fairly recently, and I'm kind of upset. This has gone on far too long. I would like to be done now. The main developmental goal during this time is building the foundation or setting the trajectory for your adult life. Now, I am going to talk about college because I went to college. I know that not all young adults go to college. I don't think college is for everyone, of course, but that's what I did, so this is my experience. If you or the person in your life who might have SPD didn't go to college, then you might relate more to tomorrow's video about SPD in adult life. College is usually a person's first extended time period living away from a parent or guardian. They could be an ocean away, or just an hour's drive, depending on the circumstance, but they aren't there to advocate for you. You have to advocate for yourself. Asking for what you need is really, really hard. And if they don't know they have SPD, they might still be thinking that they can scold themselves into doing better and masking more in an attempt to cover up any problems that might arise from sensory difficulties. Unfortunately, I know from many personal experiences that this is a disaster. If I talked about every single problem I had in college that was directly caused by my SPD, this video would be hours long. Sensory overload abounds on college campuses. All the different classroom environments, living in a dorm, figuring out your eating habits, meeting new people, almost nothing about college is easy to adjust to for people with SPD. For me, the hardest part was living in a dorm. The practice of masking was so ingrained in me that I did not have the ability to turn it off, to unmask, unless I was completely alone. And living with a roommate meant that my time alone was scarce and unpredictable. My anxiety became so severe that even hearing keys jingling or a doorknob turning, even if it wasn't my door or my roommate's keys, those sounds instantly triggered a state of hypervigilance because I knew that I would immediately have to throw the mask back on. And again, this form of repression was so embedded in my thought process that I continued to do it even when I was around people that I knew logically would probably accept me if I just told them. But I was still thinking with a defective normal mindset, so I thought if I scold myself enough, if I mask enough, if I try harder to be normal, then one day it'll work. What's that one quote about insanity being trying the same thing over and over again and expecting different results? Yeah, that was me. Usually the fall semester was like my good semester, and then by the time spring rolled around, I would be right back in burnout again. When I was in these burnout stages, I made a lot of mistakes. I didn't take care of myself. I wasn't a good friend. I definitely wasn't a good person to live with. Gosh. The weight of living life every single day with a completely invisible, undiagnosed disorder that I had no idea how to manage just crushed me. It really did. When I was 19, I finally found out that I had SPD, but I was so immobilized at this point by anxiety and by depression, by burnout and by trauma and stress that I didn't even know what to do. Luckily, my mom was able to connect me with a really great counselor. I still work with her today on developing strategies for making my life as sensory friendly as possible and managing all the mental health difficulties that come along the way. If you know a young adult with SPD, just, well, I was gonna say give them a hug, but maybe don't. Maybe like a high five. Or get him a blanket. SPDers love blankets. Bonus points if it weighs like 20 pounds. Whew, that kind of got vulnerable, but we are at the end of day 5. Remember to do something sensational today, and I hope I will see you back tomorrow for the last part of our sensory timeline. Bye!